Suzy Karadsheh. No, I'm not saying it right. I've been practicing.
Suzy Karadsheh.
Karadsheh, okay.
You're good.
Is a 2-time New York Times bestselling author, entrepreneur, and culinary expert. In 2014, she founded the MediterraneanDish.com, which has since grown to serve millions of readers and is the leading online resource for modern Mediterranean cooking and lifestyle. We're going to be definitely talking about social media with you because what you've done is amazing in garnering a following. In 2018, she expanded the business to include an online shop sourcing quality ingredients from throughout the Mediterranean, which includes her own line of spices and olive oils. Suzy has one mission: to help you eat well and live joyfully. That's sort of 2 missions.
Yeah, you get a twofer.
Born and raised on Egypt's Mediterranean shore, Suzy combines her heritage with her love for wholesome, healthy cooking to create simple, flavorful recipes anyone can make. Even this one's super easy today, what we're going to do, right?
Yes,
Her
10 minutes.
approachable style, coupled with her authenticity and passion for the Mediterranean lifestyle, has earned her a dedicated following, and her recipes are known for being both nutritious and accessible. With a focus on promoting healthy eating, Suzy continues to inspire others to explore and enjoy the rich culinary traditions of the Mediterranean. Please help me welcome Suzy Karadsheh.
Thank you. That was very generous.
All right,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much. Okay.
Okay,
So shall we cook?
So shall we cook? She was just telling me this book just made the New York Times bestselling list. So congratulations.
Yeah,
It's only
you.
been out.
Thank you.
It's only been out for a few weeks, or maybe,
No,
right?
just over a week.
Okay, wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell us what we're going to be cooking from the Mediterranean
Okay, we
dish.
are cooking a dill and lime chicken. I don't know if you guys have the book in your hand, but it's on page 106. Don't look so hard because I don't follow my own recipes. So I write them, but then it's hard to go back and follow. I kind of have an idea how this recipe goes, but we shall see if I follow as closely as it's written. We have chicken cutlets or chicken breasts that you can slice up really thinly. This recipe comes together in about 10 minutes, so it's great for any night of the week, and it uses very few ingredients. So dill and lime kind of make a delicious herby sauce, and then we add to it some olives. Totally optional if you're not an olive lover, but I am. But really, we can get started anytime. I suppose this is my cooktop. Okay. It's very fancy. We're going to turn it on. Yay! It turned on.
It works.
This is good. So we're going to let it kind of warm up a little bit, and then we're going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil, season some chicken, and it will be over before you know it. So if you have questions, get going, because we have very little time with this chicken.
Okay. All right, so let's start by talking about the Mediterranean dish, the brand. How did that come about?
Well, Susan knows the story. Susan Puckett right there.
Susan Puckett is the former food editor for the AJC, and she continues to review cookbooks for us.
Yeah, and she reviewed this one. Thank you, Susan, for that. But we talked a little bit about how this all started, which was 10 years ago, in fact. So this is our 10th anniversary with the MediterraneanDish.com. When I started, it was really more for the sake of my 2 Michigan-born daughters. I simply wanted to share and keep track of the recipes and flavors I grew up with at home in Egypt and throughout, my travels around the Mediterranean. And so when I started it, it really wasn't meant to become a public situation as we have today. It was just for the family, sort of a virtual recipe box, so to speak. And then slowly but surely, people kind of began to find the recipes online, and they began to write me about how they need more recipes of this nature because they've been prescribed the Mediterranean diet and so forth. So within a couple years of having that website, I started to kind of really think about how do I serve people outside my family, and I began to really invest in learning everything I can about the Mediterranean diet and the Mediterranean way of living, which when you grow up with something, sometimes you don't really think about it so much. You might take it for granted, and so it kind of set me on this path of really learning and sharing with everybody my passion for this kind of food, and then learning and sharing a bit about the nutrition and the lifestyle aspect of it. And it's been 10 years now, so I'm grateful for it and for everybody who's followed along since. So.
And she is based right here in Alpharetta, so this is a hometown local talent.
Yes.
Now, so with this, your second book, The Mediterranean Dish, it's simply dinner.
Yes.
So talk about, the recipe development here and what makes it, the idea is we can get dinner on fairly quickly. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't
Right.
have to be stressful.
That's right.
So how did you come up with these, recipes?
I will tell you that in a second. I'm a little worried that somebody actually really measured everything.
They did.
Right? Yeah, they did.
Terrific.
And as some of us know, some of us just do this, and I'm one of those people. And so when I develop recipes, speaking of, I do this first, and then I write it down. I don't know how other people develop recipes, but I go with my gut, especially when it comes to things like garlic. If a recipe says 2 garlic cloves, it should really not be 2. It should be more. I feel like garlic is one of those things that you measure with your heart and not with, So but I promise the recipes in the book have been tested 1,000,000 times by other people, so they work. I promise you that. But this particular book, the mission of this book is really kind of to help us all. There's a line in the book that kind of became the line that the PR people are using, but it's really meant for you to know how easy this is. We say, ditch the labor and keep the love. Because we all have this idea of like dinner being this big labor of love, which I have nothing against love. It's the labor bit that really bothers me sometimes. So I feel like my mission when I started writing this book was to try and help us all, including myself, just to kind of, borrow a bit of that Mediterranean freestyle, casual but fresh and full of flavor, and allow ourselves to just be creative and enjoy ourselves rather than having the big expectations of what dinner should be. Dinner can be anything nutritious that you put on the table. And it's more about the people, at least that's how I see it. So I'm going to show you one of those 10-minute situations, and you'll find a lot of the recipes are very easy to accomplish very quickly any night of the week. So we have the chicken breast cutlets here, which have been nicely thinly sliced. And we're going to go ahead and just season really simply salt, pepper, and coriander, and a little bit of oregano. So here, this helps. I feel more at home now. And this is a lot more chicken than I need. Is it okay if I don't use it all? Yes. Will somebody be upset? Okay. We'll put it back in the fridge. So salt and pepper, maybe we'll do 3. And coriander and oregano, and then we're gonna go ahead and give it a nice sear in the skillet that's been heating up nicely. And then we're gonna create a delicious sauce with lime and chicken broth. And you're almost done. I kind of told you the whole story now, so you may not need to look at it very hard.
Talk to us about what you call your flavor party philosophy.
Oh, yeah, you saw
I actually
that.
did read
You
the book.
saw that.
Of
That's
course,
so nice.
Of course.
Thank you for reading. Yeah. What do we want to talk about here with the flavor
Tell
party?
people what it is.
So it kind of like it's one of those things you say on a whim one time, and then people start asking you, and then you're like, oh yeah, I do have a philosophy. I really do. Let me tell you what it is. My philosophy is you know about seasoning as you go, right? A lot of people tell you, a lot of chefs will say season as you go and taste as you go so that you can make sure that you control the end result and how it turns out. When you cook the Mediterranean way, a lot of things are just really loose. Like we don't sweat so much about measuring a teaspoon. We don't worry so much about how much herbs we use in our cooking, because we use a lot more herbs than most people would actually ever think about it. So and I explain this a lot more eloquently in the book, but in my opinion, just allow yourself to play freely with the spices and the herbs that you have on hand. And you'd be surprised how you can turn something simple as a chicken breast into a delicious flavor party with just the use of like certain ingredients that we rely on a lot in Mediterranean cooking. And when it comes to flavor, we also consider using things like olives and pickles and other things that you have, cheeses. So a lot of things that we have on hand are part of the flavor makers or the flavor party. So yeah, so that's kind of it, like just have fun. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to open the book and read it for you. might not be very good to do that. But we have a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in a nice sizzling pan here. Oh, good.
Now, as you are holding the olive oil from your line of oil and spices, how did you get into that aspect?
You know, it was a God thing, actually, because one person one time shared a recipe of mine online. We're gonna go ahead and sear the chicken. And I found this person sharing a recipe of mine, and I looked at it, and I'm like, you know, I said some nice things, thank you for sharing and whatnot. And then she said, hey, my family owns some olive groves in Greece. I said, oh, in Greece, you say? And so then we started talking, and then she said, well, can I send you some to try? I said, yeah. And I, at that point, have been looking for a place to source from, because people would always send emails saying, hey, which olive oil are you using? Which spice are you using? What brand is in your, pantry? And so I finally decided that I was gonna find the best olive oils. So my husband and I kind of had been looking until this woman reached out and said, hey, I'm gonna send you some. Mm-hmm. So then I went ahead and tried hers, and I loved it. So we started talking. I said, do you think your family could send me some more? She's like, how much more? I said, a few thousand bottles. Oh. She's like, okay, let me see what we can do. And so we started real small because they weren't sure they could supply that much. And then we started selling out all the time. And, oh, it's a pot holder. Thank you. Oh, that's so that's nifty. I don't have one of these. Okay, this is gonna get hot now. All right. Okay, I think this will work. So, long story short, that's how it started. Somebody so kindly reached out and said, try my olive oil. I said yes. I tried it. I loved it. We started ordering it and carrying it. We kind of went on this beta testing situation. We started selling out, and people wanted more. So we kind of made a deal with her that we would need a lot more, and the family kind of got together and decided they will make that happen for us. So every year we kind of cross our fingers that we will get enough supply from Greece, because a lot goes into producing really good extra virgin olive oil, and the harvest is not always the same. And so we tell them ahead of time, we have to guess how much we need, and then they come in big, what do you call those? Not barrels, but drums or whatnot, and the drums are in Boston somewhere, and they get bottled, and they are what you see here. So that's the Greece part, but then we went and found people in Italy and Spain and other places, and now we have the olive oils. We did the same with the spices, and now we source other ingredients as well that you will find on our shop, themediterraneandish.com, and you can hit the shop tab and look at all the things that we've been adding. So we're gonna sear the chicken on one side, and once it starts it needs to be easy enough to turn over. So I think it needs just a minute more so I can still talk.
Yeah, so talking about ingredients, what for you are really like the essential Mediterranean pantry?
Extra virgin
besides all
olive
of
oil.
the stuff that besides the stuff that you're selling online.
Yeah, it's basically olive oil, spices, I use a lot of grains and a lot of legumes like chickpeas and beans and whatnot. I use a lot of fresh herbs, if you consider that pantry. So I always have that ready in my fridge. But yes, beans, legumes, in general, grains, nuts and seeds. We use a lot in our cooking. I know a lot of people think of nuts as just like something to snack on, but we actually incorporate nuts in some of our dishes. So nuts and seeds and lots of fresh herbs and always garlic, always some sort of citrus. So those are always available to me. Yeah.
So, and the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is, obviously there's many countries that are bordering the Mediterranean Sea. So
more than 20.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the variety of recipes that you have in this book, and even in your first one as well.
Yeah.
But in terms of representative of various countries and cuisine types.
You guys can see what's happening here. So we turned it over.
Yeah, they really can see.
Yeah. And we were supposed to add some garlic, so we'll add the garlic now, so that it doesn't burn. But yeah, the lovely thing about eating the Mediterranean way is that it's never boring, because you have flavors that are really of the variety of flavors. It's really wide. Like it's pretty. We have like North Africa, because the Mediterranean is all the way from North Africa, the Middle East, and then south of Europe, right? Italy, Greece, Spain. You have Morocco, North Africa, like Egypt, even Libya and Malta, and so there's different places that you can. Then you go up to the Levant, to the east, and sorry, is that the east? No, that's not the east of Egypt, but it's west of Egypt. Anyway, so the Levant is also its own kind of region with lots of different flavors. And so when you cook the Mediterranean way, you can go bold and vibrant and herby like the way of Greece, lots of herbs, some citrus, or you can go really deep and almost smoky and spicy like the North African region, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. They have certain flavor makers like harissa paste, which is really bold, made of chili peppers and really, really flavorful. And you add some warmth, from things like cinnamon and coriander and turmeric. Those are all part of Mediterranean cooking. In the Levant, they use a lot of like allspice, za'atar, which is an herby wild thyme and toasted sesame seed mix. And they use sumac, which is bright and quite different actually from what you get from citrus from lemon or lime. So you really have quite a bit of variety when you are working with these flavors from different parts of the Mediterranean. I don't follow any particular rules, so I tend to kind of mix up flavors as I go, which is, I get butchered for it often, but that's okay. So we're gonna add a little bit more olive oil here because the chicken has browned really nicely. Now we're gonna turn this down a tad and we're gonna add the broth. We're making a little bit of a sauce now and some lime.
I don't know if you guys can smell this, but it smells so good.
I don't know why I always cup my hand. There are no seeds in lime. Did you know that? There are no seeds.
I didn't even thought that
There are
before.
no seeds in lime. There are in lemons, but I just kind of got used to doing this to catch the seeds. But anyway, so 2 limes, and that will give you some really bright, a lovely pan sauce that you can then use, if you're gonna serve this with some some grains. I know my stuff, I promise.
I can tell. Actually,
The room is full of people, I'm a little nervous.
Okay, so let's talk about the chicken for a second here, because as you were chit-chatting with me and I was watching that sear and get darker and darker, I'm like, oh, I don't want it to overcook.
It's perfect,
It
actually.
is. It is. And
I'm
so,
paying attention, I promise.
so you cooked this on a cast iron.
Yeah.
You know, there's sometimes a temptation to touch something too much.
Yes.
So you were very calmly doing other things there instead of messing with your chicken. Is that an important part with this dish of like don't?
Yeah, so when you
it
put
up.
the chicken down, you just give it 3 to 4 minutes. It's not gonna, if it doesn't move easily, like when you try to grab it with your pair of tongs, and if it doesn't release easily, it's not ready for you to release. Leave the chicken alone. And then you'll give it just a minute on the other side, and you'll be just fine, because it will finish fully in this little sauce here. And it's actually done. You're meant to cover it for a little bit, but we've been talking, so I probably don't need to do that. And then you're gonna add your dill, which I feel like not enough people use dill. How many people use dill in their cooking? Y'all are ahead of your time. That's so great. I don't see many people using dill. I know a lot of people use parsley and basil and whatnot. No one saw that. And then if you are an olive person, then you'll add some olives. Either slice them or leave them whole, no big deal. I'm gonna slice them just a tad here. And we're gonna turn this off because we don't need to overcook it.
If you don't have Castelvetrano or can't afford Castelvetrano, is there a different variety?
You know,
that would
all
work?
God's olives are good, I feel. Olives are good. Any olive I will eat. There are people who can't eat olives though, I have found, which baffles me, but you know, everybody has their own taste. So the recipes in this book are meant for you to really make them your own. So they're written so that you can, if you don't like a certain ingredient, there are options for you, and there's usually a note about that. You can eliminate what you don't like and use something else instead. And just like that, we finished dinner. So anybody want a bite? I actually need a...
here we go, right here.
We have a... Oh, there
So
we are.
we're going to
Perfect.
keep talking, even though dinner is done.
I was about to use my dress, and that would not have been good, would it?
I want to hear...
Then you won't invite me again, will you? I feel...
Just come back with another book.
Okay.
I want to hear how you grew, your followers. I mean, you've really gotten a massive following. First of all, it takes so much these days, it seems like, on social media.
Yeah.
You know? So can you tell us some of your tricks, or, you know, what is it to what do you attribute the growth of you know, your followers?
I don't really think about it very hard. I think a couple of things. I think there is an interest in different flavors from different parts of the world. I see that people are truly interested in authentic flavors from other parts. So there's a growth in just wanting to experiment and try new things. And of course, the Mediterranean diet is one of those things that have seemed trendy, but it's like really an ancient way to eat. And every time I see somebody trying to make it trendy, it makes me feel like, yeah, they've been eating that way a few thousand years now. But I do think that as far as my following, I started on the site first. So I'm actually pretty late in the social media game. So my numbers are not really that impressive. However, I think it's just is a part of people are interested in cooking. People are looking for nutritious food. People want a healthy dinner, but they don't want to give up flavor, and that's what the Mediterranean dish offers. And so I think a lot of it is just trying to meet people where they are and meet their needs, and a lot of it is just being yourself and messing up, and people are okay with that. And the less perfect, the better. So as you can tell, very imperfect. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Just sharing your passion consistently with people, and it grows.
And I want to ask you a little bit too about, I mean, you're the mother of a couple kids, right? Are these teenagers, am I correct? Or,
Yeah, 22 and 14.
Okay, so you've got at least one in the house, right?
Yeah.
Considering that you're running your own business and then, you've got this book, you've got all these things. How do you find time yourself to cook at home?
I have no choice, right? I think, so like many people, I'm not unique in this problem of having to feed your family day after day after day. I'm not the only one who has to feed my kids, but I do think two things. My family, they're all saints. They really give me a lot of grace at home because I am not always available. But the other thing is you don't have to cook every day. You can make a meal, and then the next day you can give that meal a new life by, I don't know, if this chicken is not eaten today, I might just chop it up and put it on a salad the next day, and there's a new, and they don't even know. They really don't. And I kind of pretend like it's a whole new thing, and they're like, oh, this is great. So I think a lot of, and this book will give you some of these tips of like a little bit of preparing ahead. I've gotten pretty good at being efficient in the kitchen, and I really don't like to spend more than 30 minutes working on anything. So I've just kind of gotten pretty good at figuring out the ingredients that I work with very comfortably and having those always on hand. It really helps to have them because the last thing I want to do is like last minute have to go shop for something. So a couple of other things that are very helpful to me. When I have grains, I cook them ahead of time. So if it's like farro or barley or rice or whatever, I'll cook something ahead of time and keep it in the fridge so that the next day when I'm done with my chicken, I don't really have to worry about doing other things. Like that's available to me. I'll chop up a salad and here's your dinner. So I've just kind of become efficient in making sure that I have the things I need, a little bit of prepare ahead. I'm not really good at meal planning as I might look, but I try to look like I know what I'm doing. The children eat whatever they're given, right? I've learned over the years, so I just put it on the table and let them eat. I don't know, do you guys have some advice? Because I see a lot of people here probably have family and kids that they have to feed every day. Do you ever get tired of that? Yeah, I know. That's why I wrote this book, is really to tell all the tired people, we don't have to be so tired all the time. We can just, 10-minute meals are just fine. Nobody knows the difference, right? So,
if you had to pick a couple recipes from the book that you would love for people to try, so these are the ones, definitely test these out.
I would love for them to try everything.
Yes.
However, it's like you're asking me which one of my kids I like more. It feels a little unfair, but I will point to a few. Okay, let's see here. There is a recipe on page 68 called chickpea marinara. This recipe came together one Sunday afternoon after church when I came home and I discovered I had to feed my family. I walked into the pantry, I'm like, we don't have anything, 2 cans of chickpeas, a jar of marinara sauce, and I made this thing that we call chickpea marinara. I added to it some cheese, and it melted nicely, so it looks fancy. They don't know the difference. They ate it, they loved it, and now it's one of those things that are like, okay, I always have chickpeas on hand, I always have some marinara. If I cooked it myself, it's in the fridge, or I have something in them. You asked for 2 recipes, so let me
give us the second one.
One more recipe. Do I give you a dessert? Do you guys want a dessert? There is a flourless chocolate cake recipe that I actually made on GMA, and they inhaled it. So, did you all watch that episode? I hope you did. But here it is, flourless chocolate cake, if you ever want to make it. Very easy. Also very forgiving recipe, and very good, if I may say, gluten-free. Anyone here gluten-free? No?
That we have a few.
Oh, we have a few. Okay. I have a couple of gluten-free friends that I've kept in mind as I was working on this book, so that there's enough for everybody. Actually, the majority of them are gluten-free. So.
No, that's great. I've been asking all of the chefs who have come up here and the culinarians to this question, but what's your next project? People like you always stay busy and have the next thing going or in the back.
If I told you, I'd have to get... No. I have a very exciting project that's coming out in the spring of 2025. I really can't say a whole lot about it other than it's been a dream come true. So that's gonna come. Just watch for it. I'll probably write more books if you all keep buying them. That would be very kind of you if you would. And we are working on adding quite a few products to our line of offerings on the shop. There's a lot happening. Those are 3 things that are happening that I hope will be exciting to people.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We can't wait. Well, you can read about it in the AJC. We'll be sure to tell you. So we're going to go ahead and open it up to all of you with your questions. If you have a question, just please raise your hand and I'll come around.
Do I clean this up?
No. People. We have people for that.
I feel like I should. I will tidy as you ask.
Hi. I'm the cook at my house, and I use really cheap olive oil for sauteing, but I buy the really good stuff for salad.
Yeah.
Should I be using the good stuff to cook with?
I mean, I use all the good stuff all the time, but if it's not hurting you and you're enjoying it, it's fine. I'm not gonna wrinkle my nose at it, really. We have several olive oils on our, people ask this question all the time, but I use several olive oils. I probably keep, like, we have the early harvest extra virgin olive oil on our site. That one I usually just use for drizzling and sometimes for baking, because the flavor really does add some richness. And then there are others that I use for every day, like sauteing and such. But whatever is working for you, I wouldn't change it. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Nobody wants to try this, really? Okay. I'll try it. Just in case anybody's gonna eat this, I wanna make sure it's actually edible.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's good. Okay.
Because we're here in Georgia, a lot of the herbs and things that you've cited are not going to be at your local Publix or, whatever market you're using, maybe at Whole Foods. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what do you think about, for dill, for example, when I didn't attempt to grow it, which wasn't very successful, using dry drip spices and herbs when you can't find anything fresh, or when you look at it and it's already brown?
Yeah, I think if you can't find something dry would usually work. In the case of dill, you probably use a lot less dry dill than the fresh because it's a lot more concentrated. So it works. I don't ever want people to feel like they couldn't make a recipe because the one ingredient is not available. So that the idea would be like, find something that works for you. And dry herbs work very well. Oregano, for example, I almost always use our dry oregano, our Greek dry oregano. It's beautiful. The flavor is so much more than the fresh that I buy at the supermarket. So it really depends. And of course, the quality of the actual dried herb will make a difference. But on the whole, you could make that switch, no problem. Yeah.
Other questions?
Hello.
Hi.
So before driving here, I watched one of your soup shorts, the new one. So kind of on the, I guess, social media or YouTube realm, how long does it usually take you to make a video?
How long does it take me to make a video? It depends on the kind of video. I would say per recipe about an hour to just cook it and talk to the camera and all that. And the editing is a whole other thing that I thankfully don't have to do. But it takes me an hour to make one video, about-ish, yeah.
As a follow-up, how large of a team do you have?
I have 10 full-time people. We have over 20 contributors in different parts of the Mediterranean. So I'm not the only one writing for the MediterraneanDish.com anymore. There are chefs and writers from Italy, Spain, Lebanon, different parts of the Mediterranean who this is their platform and they are able to contribute to our site. So yeah, that about 30-ish people, give or take, participate in our little gig. Yeah.
Could you tell us about some of your family traditions, like your mother, grandmother, great-grandmothers, and how did you get into cooking? Was that just kind of always expected of you, or just give us a little bit more of family history?
Yeah, so I grew
and
up.
what are your favorite family meals growing up?
Yes, I have many favorites, and I think in the first book we talked a lot more about my family traditions, and some of my favorite recipes are in that book. But so I grew up in Port Said, Egypt. It's right on the Mediterranean. It is a port. If you are familiar with the Suez Canal, that's where I grew up. As far as traditions go, I remember fishing a lot because we were right there. So waking up at an ungodly hour of the morning just to go fish. Never catching anything myself, but really enjoying the food afterwards. So that's one thing that every summer was a lot of that. As far as my mom's kitchen, I wasn't expected necessarily to cook. I was expected to know somehow how to cook, but I spent a lot of time just sitting there in her kitchen and just seeing what she's doing. And oftentimes, like at Christmas or the holidays, Easter, people will come over and they cook together, and it's a very communal experience, just working together in community. And so my mom's friends would come over to make the cookies or, roll the grape leaves, and a lot of chatter happening. And so I remember sitting at those tables and learning how to roll my grape leaves and making the little cookies for Easter and all that. So those are things I do today with my kids, and they enjoy them. At least they look like they do. I don't want to lie to you. We'll have to ask, But yeah, and some of my favorite recipes, or one of the things that I continue to love making from my mom's recipes is grape leaves. That's just something that's a little bit of a labor of love, which I don't like, that it's a labor of love, but I've gotten pretty efficient at it, and I enjoy just the idea of gathering at the table with my kids and doing that, just more as a social experience. So, yeah, of course.
Hi. Hi.
Hey.
I just wanted to say first that I love your easy sautéed cabbage. I make that quite a bit.
Thank you.
But my question is about soup. It's my favorite food, and since hopefully at some point it will be cold around here,
Yeah.
Are there any in your new book, your first book, or on your website that stand out as your favorites?
At the moment, for soups,
Yes.
you said. There are plenty of soups in this book and the first one. And at the moment, there is a series that I'm in online on Instagram. It's called Sip Happens.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's all soups because, soup season is upon us. I do really love cabbage soup. I don't know what it is about cabbage I love so much, but there is a cabbage soup recipe on our site that I love. Another Greek soup that's very traditional is avgolemino soup. If you've had it at a Greek restaurant, I make it better, just FYI. And that one is on our site. You can find it there. And that is, I think, my youngest kid, that's her favorite soup. It's a chicken rice soup with lots of lemon juice. And it's so comforting in the best way. So try those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question. Okay, over here.
Hey, I was just wondering about cheese. I feel like a lot of times people think feta cheese, and that might be the only association they have with Mediterranean cooking. Is that true? And how do you use cheese in your recipes?
You have to remember, like we were talking earlier, the Mediterranean's like more than 20 countries. Feta cheese is very very Mediterranean, very well known, and obviously the origins. If you want to use the term feta, it has to be from Greece. But there are derivatives of it. We generally say feta cheese, but really if you're going to use the term feta, it has to be Greek. But like in Egypt, we grew up with a version of that feta cheese, and we love it. So you're right in that that's kind of the association, but Italy has a lot of cheeses, and that's Mediterranean as well. So mozzarella I use pecorino romano a lot because I love the nutty flavor, Parmigiano Reggiano, all of them. I use all the cheeses. However, when you think about the Mediterranean diet and the way that we use these ingredients, we hardly use, I don't know, a tenth of the amount of cheese that you might see at an Italian restaurant at home. So I feel like there's a little bit of a loose guidance on what the Mediterranean diet looks like. On the whole, it's not a very dairy-heavy diet, but we do use dairy often, just not in the same amounts and not in the same way. But it might be something that to finish up a dish, like I showed you, the chickpea marinara has some mozzarella on it, but it's never like, sometimes when you go someplace and you order something that has cheese, it's more cheese and then whatever else is added to it. And that's kind of the opposite when you cook the Mediterranean way. Does that make sense? But just come over and I'll cook you something and then you'll see for sure. Yeah.
I think we all want to come over to your house tonight.
Please do.
Yes, so Suzy Karadsheh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys all for coming.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Y'all have been really kind listening to all my tales, and I appreciate you.
Just a few announcements. So as I mentioned at the outset, Eagle Eye Books is in back here where you can purchase Suzy's book. She'll also be signing in the tent just around outside and around the corner. And I forgot to mention that Local Palate is the sponsor for this culinary stage, so they deserve a shout out. And they have a tent out there as well. If you sign up for their membership, they'll be giving you a whole bunch of swag items. So take a look at that. We are going to meet here again in 30 minutes. Todd Richards is going to be here. So I hope you'll join us again. And the one thing that the person that you won't see here today is William Disson. He is a chef from Asheville who was supposed to attend today's book festival, but due to the Hurricane Helene, he is unable to be here. His book, Thoughtful Cooking, is in the back. And I did want to mention to those of you who are interested in supporting hurricane relief efforts up in Asheville, this coming Monday, numerous Atlanta restaurants have banded together in collaboration for a buffet dinner. It is $50 a person, and all of the proceeds are going to World Central Kitchen. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can find information on Sweet Auburn Barbecue website, and that's where the event is going to be hosted this Monday starting at 5 o'clock. So I invite you to that. So Suzy, thank you again, and thank you all for attending.